All right. Thank you for joining us again for the second part of the mini series, The Nervous System Economy. Today, we're going to talk about the hidden fees, the subscriptions that you might have forgotten to cancel. So let's start. Have you ever noticed that it's not always the big stuff that breaks you? It's the little stuff that piles up until your body finally sends that bill. That's what I mean by the hidden fees. It's the quiet costs, the ones that come out of your energy account really without you realizing it. The habits, the coping mechanisms, and the environments that keep auto charging your nervous system month after month while you're swearing that you're doing everything right. I personally used to think that burnout was something that really happened to people that couldn't handle the stress. I prided myself on being able to handle a lot of stress. But now, hindsight's 2020, I know that it happens when really you handle too much stress for too long without really allowing your body and your nervous system to cash that check for rest. And the way that it showed up for me, those hidden fees showed up very slowly and it compounded on top of each other. For example, I was just drinking really a lot more than I wanted to admit. Not blackout drunk. I wasn't falling apart, but I just wanted to numb a lot of things out. The kind of mentality that I earned this vodka soda and then it turned into three. This nip or shot, wherever you might be coming from, isn't going to be a big deal kind of night, which left me feeling a lot worse the next morning. I was snapping over everything. The smallest things were setting me off. Traffic, noise, a text notification, everything just felt way too much. I wasn't sleeping very well. It didn't help that I had a terrible shift in sleep schedule. My brain just couldn't shut off even when I did have the ability to rest. I would just lie there scrolling, wide awake at 2 a.m., exhausted, yet still wired. And at that point, I started just pulling away from everything. Conversations were just incredibly draining. Hanging out with people felt like work. Even with the band, which is something that I loved, started to feel more like an obligation. And there were even moments where things started to get dark in a passive, quiet way where I just wished that I could stop existing for a while, fantasizing about disappearing, not really out of despair, but out of exhaustion, jokingly saying that I would swap places with a psych patient that was being held for 72 hours, literally just for some silence. That's what burnout does. It doesn't always scream. Sometimes it slowly erases your will to show up. And the wild part is that at that time, I was doing what I thought everything was right. They say that when you're stressed, you need to work out, you need to eat healthy, get out in nature. And I did. I was at that time the best shape of my life. I was deadlifting 245 pounds. I was hiking almost every single day that I was off shift with my dog when the weather was nice. I was eating what I thought was very clean, nutrient dense food, high protein, getting vegetables in, cutting out carbs. But underneath it all, I was just running on fumes. I was a product of the diet culture. Even from the young age of 10, I remember I was going to weight loss support groups with my mom called Take Off Pounds Sensibly. It was Jesus, it was just craziness. And then as an adult, I'm running on caffeine and constant output. I was an incredible product of the diet culture growing up. So even from a young age, I never had a great relationship of what it meant to be a healthy individual with food and nutrition and working out. And so that was just this constant output. And then on top of that, my gut was wrecked. My sleep was wrecked. My hormones completely wrecked. But I thought I was checking every wellness box and yet still falling apart. In my blood work, all of it showed completely fine. I was filling up my body with every supplement, electrolyte, creatine, protein powder, everything you can think of. But you cannot outtrain a dysregulated nervous system. You can't green juice your way out of survival mode. You surely cannot gratitude journal your way out of chronic depletion. Looking back now, I can see that my body was certainly trying to get my attention. I was withdrawing too much from the bank, and these were the hidden fees that I was not paying attention to. The statements were coming in, piling up quietly, and I just kept ignoring them in the name of hustle culture and overdrive. And just like ignoring those credit card bills, the longer you avoid it, the louder and redder the statements get, right? When I needed to clear space on my iPhone, I started deleting random apps that I never use, a few megabytes here, a few there. Suddenly, I just freed up 6 gigabytes of space. It's really how these hidden fees work. Each little thing, overthinking, the lack of sleep, a skipped meal, the I'm fine when you're not, saying, no worries, I can do it when you can't. These things seem small on their own, but they all add up until your system just starts lagging, crashing, glitching out. And by the time you finally notice, your system is just totally out of storage. Don't let that be your nervous system economy. So far, if this resonates with you, I would love if you hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on more tips on how to stay sane and regulated in this crazy ass hustle culture. With that said, let's talk about the subscriptions. Speaking of subscriptions, that you forgot to cancel. These are the energy auto payments that you've been sending out for months, sometimes years, without even realizing how much they are costing you. For me, it was the constant need to prove that I was fine and that I was capable. This inherent need to people please and to prove my worth. That unspoken, I can handle it subscription that renews every time you say yes when you really mean no. Maybe for you, it's a relationship that's been running on expired terms, or a job that used to serve you, but now it just drains you. Or perhaps it's even a coping mechanism that started as a lifeline and now has turned into a leash. The nervous system loves familiarity. Even when something is unhealthy, if it's predictable, we will stay. That's why people stay in jobs that wreck them, relationships that drain them, or routines that leave them empty, because the body thinks predictability is equal to safety. So you keep auto renewing things that you should have canceled a long ass time ago. So you have these stress memberships, drama subscriptions, guilt packages. Every time you replay an old story about not being good enough, it's just another renewal. Every time you say, I don't have time for rest, that's another renewal. Every time you check your email during dinner, that's another renewal. And what's wild is that the body doesn't even need to be in physical danger to be burned out. Just the anticipation of stress alone costs the same amount of energy as the stress itself. Your nervous system doesn't even know the difference between this is happening and I'm imagining that this is happening. It still pays out. That's the wild thing. So the subscriptions just keep running in the background, draining your energy like too many apps that are just running all at once. Canceling them means getting honest about what actually serves you, not what looks good on paper, not what people expect from you, but what genuinely makes your system feel safe. That's your new definition of success. Nervous system safety. Looking back now, I can see how many of those subscriptions were actually running my own life. For example, like the belief that I had to be strong, the pressure to just keep showing up no matter what, the guilt of wanting a break when other people had it worse. I told myself that these were virtues. It's resilience, it's discipline, it's selflessness. They were really just invoices in disguise. My body was sending me warnings, but I filed them under later, and later became never. And the truth is, your nervous system doesn't forget the bills that you ignore. Trust me, just like a credit card company, right? They will never forget the bills that you ignore. It just stops sending polite reminders and just starts shutting down your services, right? First, it's focus, then sleep, then joy, until all that is left is function. And even that runs on borrowed energy. The hardest part isn't realizing how much you've spent, it's realizing how long that you have been bankrupt and you still show up like everything is fine. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit because we're going to talk about another big hidden fee. This is one that I'm actually super passionate about because I ended up having a huge wake up call because a few years ago, my own product of being the diet culture and eating diet foods, I ended up needing an emergency surgery that destroyed my intestines. Because of this, I realized the importance of eating clean foods, actual clean foods, not just diet clean foods, right? The ones that were sold to be known as healthy. So, with that said, I want to talk about the biggest hidden fees of gut debt, the stress you eat. You've probably heard that your gut is your second brain, and it's true in a way. About 90% of your serotonin is produced there in a way. The gut and brain do talk constantly through the vagus nerve. But when you're living in fight or flight mode, digestion gets pushed to the bottom of the priority list since that's derived through the parasympathetic. Your body reroutes blood away from the gut and into the muscles because it thinks it's actually preparing for battle while you're in the sympathetic drive. So no matter how healthy you eat, your system isn't actually absorbing the way that it properly should. That's why people who do everything right still feel like garbage, because it's not just what you're eating, it's who you are when you eat. If you eat every meal in a rush, scrolling, anxious, multitasking, you're literally just training your nervous system to see nourishment as another job that it just needs to get through. And there's also the hidden cost of eating shit all the time. And I don't just mean fast food, I mean frozen dinners, energy drinks, the healthy protein snacks loaded with chemicals that your body just literally doesn't recognize. Trust me, I'm guilty of it. Which again brings me to another point, the actual food. There's the hidden costs of eating that shit all the time. And like I said, I don't just mean the drive-throughs and the hangover pizza, the health food that's been sold to us that's actually been stripped and processed and sprayed and stabilized until your body literally doesn't even recognize it as food anymore. These foods, the ones that are packaged with refined oils, preservatives, synthetic ingredients, the ones that are sold as sugar-free, fat-free, but then replaced with chemicals that literally our body doesn't even know what it is. They don't just make you bloated or tired, they break down the gut barrier itself. It's that thin lining in your intestines. It's literally supposed to act like a security guard, letting in nutrients and keeping toxins out. But when you're in chronic stress, and then inflammatory foods then punch holes through that barrier. When that happens, proteins and toxins start slipping through into that bloodstream, and that's what can lead to something called leaky gut syndrome. Your immune system freaks out, inflammation skyrockets, and suddenly your nervous system is fighting fires 24/7. But really, that's something that started in your gut and then it became a systemic problem. Brain fog, fatigue, random body aches, even autoimmune diseases that are rampant. Half the time, it's not these issues or mental health, it's your body in full scale inflammatory response. So, when I say that you can't regulate a dysregulated gut, I mean it quite literally. You can't build calm on top of chemical chaos. You can't ask your brain to feel safe when your gut itself is literally screaming danger at the molecular level. My version of healthy used to be control and falling into, like I said, this diet culture. Perfect macros, prepped meals, caffeine is breakfast. Even though my body looked strong, my gut was completely wrecked. When your gut's inflamed, your vagus nerve gets the same signal it would during stress, which is danger. That keeps your nervous system stuck in that sympathetic overdrive. You can't regulate when your gut's screaming that you're under attack. Remember, it can't tell the difference. Your body's not asking for kale, it's asking for calm. The cost of constantly eating in a stressed out state with highly processed shit foods covered in preservatives and chemicals is massive. Inflammation, brain fog, anxiety, poor sleep. These are all symptoms of a body that doesn't feel safe digesting life, digesting foods. Gut health isn't just a diet trend, it's literally a nervous system strategy. And then you have the emotional bank heist, the environments, relationships, the systems that rob your nervous system of calm without you even realizing it. Those people who leave you feeling drained after every single conversation, or that workplace where your body tenses the second you walked through the door. Perhaps the family dynamic where you're the only peacekeeper and everyone else gets to explode. Those are emotional robbers. Sometimes you're the one that's actually holding the door open for them. That's the crazy part. The emotional bank heist happens anytime your body gets robbed of regulation, when safety gets replaced by vigilance, when connection gets replaced by performance, when authenticity gets replaced by approval. I used to think that burnout really came specifically by workload, but it wasn't until I sat back and realized that mine came from leadership betrayal, from being told to keep going when I was already running on fumes with zero appreciation, I might add, from being made to feel replaceable while I was literally breaking myself to serve. That's the emotional equivalent of someone cleaning out your bank account while you're still trying to make deposits. Eventually, you start guarding yourself, shutting down, numbing out, overcompensating with perfectionism and people pleasing. That's not personality, that's protection. So the question becomes, who has access to your energy account? And do they deserve it? Because you can't build wealth in an environment that keeps robbing you. Looking back now, I can see how many withdrawals I let happen in silence. How many times I just smiled through discomfort. How many times I made other people's comfort my priority and called it strength. I can see how my body tried to warn me through exhaustion, irritation, cravings, and gut pain, and how I labeled it all as weakness instead of communication. Every symptom was a message. Every shutdown was self preservation. and my body wasn't broken. It was doing exactly as it was designed to do. Protect me when I refused to protect myself. The nervous system doesn't speak in words, it speaks in signals. And ignoring these signals is literally the most expensive fucking bill you will ever pay. So here's your reflection for the week. What subscriptions are you still paying for? Emotionally, mentally, physically, that no longer serve you? What foods, people, habits, or coping mechanisms keep auto charging your nervous system? And what emotional robbers have access to your calm? And what would happen if you finally just changed your password? Remember, calm isn't a reward, it's a baseline. You don't earn regulation by achieving more. You reclaim it by canceling what's been costing you your peace. Burnout isn't a sign of weakness, it's a collection notice from your body. But the good news, you can rebuild that wealth, just one small deposit at a time. Next time, we're going to dive into the emotional credit rebuild, how you can earn back trust with your own body and create a nervous system that doesn't just survive chaos, but stays calm through it. Because you don't need to keep proving your worth through exhaustion. You just need to start living like your energy is currency, because that's what it is. If this resonates, just hit that subscribe button to keep getting some weekly tips, really how to stay sane in this fucked up world that's trying to steal your energy. And see you next week.